That's where the creation of Crusher Broomfield started.
Now, what was Angelo Poffo like as a booker and all that? Was he pretty good?
Angelo Poffo, he knew the business, of course. He was a veteran, I mean, but, you know, like his nickname, you know, his mask name was the Miser.
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, that's...
what was Randy like back then?
Randy was just, he was crazy, just like years later, he never changed, you know, with that same gruff, you know, and all that, just crazy all the time. It's hard to explain. I mean, when I first went there, I had nowhere to live, so I lived with him, you know, in his house. I had my own room and everything like that, but, I mean, he was just, he's crazy. He'd be up in the middle of the night, you know, training, lifting weights. He had his weights in his house, you know, bench and everything. I mean, it'd be in the middle of the night. You hear him in there lifting weights, and he's just nuts.
Was he paranoid back then at all?
All the time.
Yeah.
Especially with, they had this fascination with Lawler and all this.
Right, the other company.
The Memphis group, they had this fascination about always challenging them on using their TV time, you know, their ICW TV time. They'd get on there and challenge Lawler and his little group to, you know, all kind of, you know, baby diaper matches or baby bottle match or anything, you know, and then they would show up at the arena where they're wrestling. And
I remember that.
Challenge them at ringside and do all kind of goofy. I mean, I didn't even at that time it didn't, you know, it didn't seem that strange. But now as years went by, I've thought about them. Thinking, why would you use your own precious TV time? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Anybody would love to have a wrestling television show, you know. And they're going to use their TV time instead of showcasing one of their talent. They're wasting it challenging this other group and don't even care probably squat about them anyway. You know? It didn't make sense. Like I said, we did a little Crusher Broomfield angle where I was a old country boy from South Carolina, and I was a servant basically for Savage, and Bob Orton Jr. was there. Ronnie Garvin was a baby face.
I was going to ask you about him in your series of matches with Ronnie. How was that?
Rough. Very rough. Stiff as can be. But it was good, though. I mean, you know, he'd light you up with them chops, you know, and headbutts, whatever. But the matches was good. Even with Savage, I had matches with Savage. Those were good, and, you know, but it was a good learning ground, you know. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best. Me and 3 or 4 guys would have to share a little apartment and things like that, you know. For a ride, we'd have to ride in the back of a ring truck, you know, freezing cold. We're laying up on 2x4, you know, trying to make it to a town or whatever. That's basically how it was. Almost, we're really worse than the independent circuit was when, you know, before I left. The only difference was I was making a little bit more money, not much, but a little bit. But it's just the idea, you know, these are like, man, these are big time stars. To me, they were, you know what I'm saying? Pistol Pez Watley and Bob Roop, you know, these were big name stars to me.
Now, I guess you were talking a little bit earlier about the heat between the Jarretts and the Poffos. Was there heat on Ronnie Garvin when he went on TV and exposed Randy Savage for shoplifting?
I believe it was. I don't think it was no heat there. I believe it just worked his angle. You know, he was caught playing his. I mean, it was publicized. So I guess they just used it. As far as I know, they was just using it as an angle because Garvin that particular time, Garvin was anything, you know, against Savage. You know what I mean? That was the big feud. Savage and Garvin, you know, for their world title, which Savage held. So anything would try to work that angle up worse than what it was, you know.